Now, tomorrow is World Elderly Abuse Awareness Day. Yesterday, 300 elderly people marched in Mpumalanga to raise awareness around the abuse of senior citizens. Well, to help us unpack this and discuss this a little further, I'm now joined by someone from the Department of Social Development, Jabulile Mohlouwa. Thanks so much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Peter.
Well, it's sad that we have to have a day like tomorrow dedicated to awareness to abuse of elderly people. That sounds so un-African and so uncultural.
Yeah, it is. But the United Nations felt it necessary for all countries to have such an important day because we are realizing that there is an increase in elder abuse and that something has to be done. Typically,
what kind of abuses do elderly people find themselves most vulnerable to?
The highest, Peter, is psychological abuse, followed by financial abuse. We also are noting physical abuse and sexual abuse. Wow. Yeah, but it is difficult to report sexual abuse. As you may know, the weakness of older persons in terms of remembering what happened to them, but also the taboo that goes with elder abuse.
Who are the abusers in most cases?
It's family members or people who should be caring, for older persons, typical abusers, but also places where older persons should be getting help. It can be at the payout points, it can be at the hospital, it can be even in institutions of care. In old age homes or residential facilities, we do get, pockets of elder abuse as well.
So who should be helping these people? Do they know where to go to say, look, I feel like I'm being abused here? Do they come to Department of Social Services? Where do they go?
Peter, they can go to other SABC, they can go to the Department of Social Development, the Department of Health as well. Even to justice, to courts, if they feel it's the nearest place where they can go to. But the key people, it's us, the Department of Social Development. But then the Older Persons Act mandates every citizen to report abuse. And there is no one who can be held,
So if I live next door and I hear that an elderly person is being abused, it is law for me to report that to the police?
Of course, yes.
Right, so I suppose it's exceptionally difficult for them if it's a family member that's abusing them, particularly if it's not physical and it's mental abuse.
It is. It's even difficult to prove because, as you may know, sometimes the allegation can be that of physical abuse, but then as we know, as you grow older, your skin becomes thinner and it's easy to be bruised, And also the mental state that the people find themselves in. People, fall, now and then. But also the issue of finance. Sometimes older persons may not be, able to account as to how much was in their purse. So that's typically difficult.
And I would imagine those that live alone are also even more vulnerable than the ones that perhaps are in the care of somebody else.
Yeah, it is difficult.
So what programs do you undertake to try and mitigate these kinds of issues?
Okay, we have right through the country awareness programs which are targeted at older persons themselves, but also families and the community at large, to create awareness of elder abuse. But then within centers of older persons, we do have, awareness programs, information dissemination programs as well. But we also are alerting all government departments to be alert of elder abuse. And we also encourage, institutions of care, like residential facilities, to have programs on elder abuse, because sometimes people become burnt out and they may not be even aware that they are now abusing older persons.
What do you think has gone wrong in society that we're seeing this kind of thing happening more and more often? I grew up at a time where anyone that was older than me, you had to respect, and it just seems not so much the case anymore.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of factors. I'm thinking of the economic state that we find ourselves in. Older persons having a stable source of income by means of a grant, they become vulnerable. But also issues of people not understanding the process of aging, thinking that a person was able, to do things for themselves, and now suddenly they are unable to do so. Family members may think that they seek attention, but also issues of lack of understanding of how to care for older persons are contributory factors.
And I would imagine that as they get older, there's all these kinds of diseases and conditions, dementia, that start to creep in, that become difficult for their caregivers, especially family. As you say, that they just don't understand what they're dealing with. What should they do in that case? Do you put someone in a care home? What do you do?
Okay, I think it is important, for family members to start seeking help, in our offices, because that's where they'll be able to get help by means of education, but also by means of support, so that when a person feels burnt out or they don't know what to do, they can then be referred to the nearest NGO, because a lot of NGOs have respite care services whereby the carer is actually given, a break with regards to caring for older persons. But also if there is a need in an area, then support groups can be started. All
right, we're running out of time, but in 20 seconds, what's the most important thing we should bear in mind tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow I think we need to begin to, take charge of what is happening around us by means of identifying older persons who may be staying alone, but also older persons who appear shabby, because there's lots of neglect out there, either self-neglect or family neglect, and start, blowing a whistle, or even telling our faith-based organizations, because I think it's the easiest way, to approach, this aspect of care. But also to begin to conscientize ourselves as well as our neighbors about the care of older persons, and know that there is the Department of Social Development who is able to help.
All right, wonderful. Thanks so much indeed. And these, I think, conversations we need to have more often than just once a year.
Of course.
Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for inviting us.
Okay. All right, that was Jabulile Mohlouwa, who's a social work manager at the Department of Social Development. And tomorrow is World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, so pay attention and help someone. They're probably desperate for someone to notice that something is not okay.